Thank you for joining us today. Today's ARC webinar is going to have a different flavor than our typical webinars. We've had a number of requests from you to meet some of the ARC team and learn a bit more about some of our programs. So today is going to be more of a fireside chat with some members of the ARC team. We're going to share both the work that we valued doing most this year and also what each of us is looking forward to next year. So you'll get a flavor for what we're up to and what's coming down the pike. Let's take a few moments and have everyone briefly introduce themselves before we dive into more detail. Firstly, I'm Isabel Lusada. I'm the founder and CEO of the Amyloidosis Research Consortium, also known as ARC. Shaki, can I hand over to you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shaki Ayodeji. I'm the Clinical Care and Education Associate here at ARC. And Laura, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura DeVilliers. I'm the Executive Director of Development here at ARC. Thank you for joining us. Sabrina, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Rebello. I'm Senior Research Manager at ARC. Welcome. I'll turn it over to you, David.
Thank you, Sabrina. Hi, everyone. My name is David Gibson. I'm Director of Strategic Programs, Engagement and Communication. So sorry for that rather long title. And over to you, Kristen.
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Sue. I'm the Executive Director of Research here at ARC and delighted to be speaking with you today. I will hand it over to Reuben.
Thanks, Kristen. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Reuben Langevin. I'm Associate Director of Strategic Initiatives here at ARC, and looking forward to sharing with you today and handing it over to Johnny.
Hi, everyone. I'm Johnny. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at ARC, and I'm really glad to have everyone join. So I'll hand it back to Isabel and start us off.
Thank you, everyone. I thought I'd start off by telling you a little bit about myself and what led me to create ARC. I'm a patient. I have AL amyloidosis, and I was diagnosed 28 years ago. But the days and weeks surrounding my diagnosis are as fresh and painful in my mind as if it were yesterday. The pain points I experienced are similar to those that many of you have experienced, and this ultimately led me to establish ARC. It took many years for me to get diagnosed, and with progressively worsening symptoms over that time. These delays were literally life-threatening. I also felt the isolation as a patient being diagnosed with a disease that no one had heard of. I had real challenges in finding an amyloidosis treatment center, and the fear I experienced when my first hematologist, who'd only learned briefly about amyloidosis but had never actually treated somebody with this disease. The treatment options were incredibly limited, and the side effects were toxic from those treatments. It was also impossible to find out about current research opportunities. I was extremely fortunate that my brother-in-law was a cardiologist, and he was able to access information and connect with amyloidosis experts, which ultimately led to me accessing a clinical trial and actually becoming one of the first patients to undergo a stem cell transplant that successfully treated my amyloidosis. I experienced extreme frustration as drugs failed in development, and it has taken many years for new therapies to get researched. New and improved treatments have just taken far too long to develop. The Amyloidosis Research Consortium, ARC, as I said, was set up to address all these challenges. There are over 7,000 rare diseases, and only about 5% of those have treatments. For a rare disease like amyloidosis, patients and the research community have to partner together to advance the science and improve patients' lives. Since the founding of ARC in 2015, we've seen 5 drugs gain approval from the FDA and more in the pipeline. I'm thrilled to have seen the concept for a research consortium take shape, grow, and become successful, and really have a real impact. You'll hear more about how we advance the science of amyloidosis by forging unique partnerships and the critical role that patients play in helping to shape our programs and the research to ensure that future treatments will provide the benefit that patients are looking for. So I'm going to hand over now to Shaki to tell you about her work with patients.
Hi again, everyone. I'm the Clinical Care and Education Associate, and I decided to join ARC to be a part of an impactful organization that is focused on the well-being of patients It's a personal goal of mine to be able to support people who are in the midst of challenges. And in my current role, I'm able to do that on a daily basis. It's an honor to really be able to support and encourage patients who reach out to ARC for guidance and resources and education, and to be able to support them in that way. And in this past year, I've been proud of my development of the stem cell guide, along with our ARC Talks webinar series, which you're on now. And we were able to have 10 series this year, and you all have been so helpful in your feedback, and we hope to continue to provide that as a resource. Next year, I'm also excited to create a program in which newly diagnosed patients are able to have a community to help create a less isolating journey, as Isabel mentioned. And along with that, I'm also excited to have prints available for a new stem cell transplantation guide that we have created. And hopefully this will serve as a helpful piece of information for patients who are, in a season of confusion, and provide that education for them. And we hope to continue to have helpful programs for patients and be a sense of community and support, and just be a place where patients can feel safe to come with their questions and inquiries. And it's confusing to be diagnosed with a rare disease, and that's why we have these educational resources to support. And I hope to continue to learn from you all as patients while I correspond with you. And yes, and our goal is to continue to be that support as we continue. And I do want to hand it off to Laura, who can tell you a bit more about how these programs are supported.
Hi there, I'm Laura DeVilliers, as I mentioned. You're seeing a small portion of our team, but just so you know, between 21 and current, we went from 4 staff members at ARC to 14 and really expanded our programs, which to me is really, really exciting. It's one of the reasons that I joined ARC, to get a chance to really focus on the needs of this community. And I act often as a bridge. So I'll speak with a lot of donors and patients. I'll speak with the different teams doing programs, and then I get to meld those together and figure out for the next couple of years, what are we going to be doing? I think that ARC has a really, really, really clear path on the marriage between research and support. And for us, that's incredibly exciting. We've received a lot of patient feedback that that's definitely welcome and, could be missing otherwise from their lives when they're trying to navigate this really confusing disease. And that does bring us to, the depth of what ARC has been accomplishing with your help. We're by no means to a point where we can say, yay, victory. But we are pursuing this goal of really pushing for better treatments, ultimately a cure. And it's an extremely exciting time. One of the things I enjoyed most in 2023 and what we'll be considering in 24 is we hosted a couple of dinners with donors, patients, caregivers, and we had a lot of feedback as far as the people in the room about our programs and about what folks were looking forward to most. But actually my favorite part, we're watching the patients and caregivers connect to one another. And building those lasting peer-to-peer relationships, which I think are really, really, really important. In addition to a really exciting part of 22-23, and then we'll continue this in 24, is having the chance to work with 2 families who really understood that if we want to push research, our community has to do this together. And so the Affleck family and the Reuben family, I don't know if you're out there, but I hope you are. Really, we worked closely with them to figure out what were their wishes when it came to amyloidosis, what kind of research would they like to see, and then they funded parts of those pieces so that eventually we can have a research endowment. And what that would mean is that ARC can not only fund the projects of ARC, but fund other research in our community, which is critically important, and we are collaborators. So we'll be continuing that in 24 as well, which is exciting. Excuse me. Last thing I wanted to highlight was a recent push into foundations. As of last year, we only had one foundation supporting our work. It can be really difficult to explain amyloidosis to someone who's never heard of it before, but also in their role as a grant maker. One of the ways that we're earning the right to speak with more foundations is by folks like you opening doors for us. So if you know of any foundations, family foundations, please definitely let us know. Excuse me. If you haven't yet invested in ARC, I would ask you to consider it at whatever level is comfortable for you. Without this community and without our work together, it's very difficult to push things forward. Rare diseases don't get a lot of government support, unfortunately, although our research team is doing a great job trying to bridge that gap. So we're really building this together. We're building these programs together. We're funding these programs together. And I would just encourage you to get involved if you can. And if we still haven't inspired you to give, call me directly. Call me directly. I will make sure that your wishes are specifically carried out in the way that you want them to. With that, I hope to hear from many, many of you in 2024. And if you need me, reach out. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sabrina.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Again, I'm Sabrina Rubello. I'm the Senior Research Manager at ARC. I lead our community research studies, such as the annual community survey, as well as the TTR patient and caregiver experience survey we did last spring. Before I came to ARC, I worked for a company that has disease-based registries, which combine both patient and physician collected data. I worked very closely with our pharmaceutical clients, doing real-world data studies. I quickly saw the value in the patient perspective, and I wanted to more directly impact patients, as well as advocate for the patient's voice to be heard in research. I was really excited to join the ARC research team back in 2020 because it's really allowed me to do just that. So with these community surveys, I've heard directly from you, the patients, about the good and the bad with getting a diagnosis and access to treatment for amyloidosis. While there is a continued frustration over the lack of awareness of the disease by members of the medical community, as we continue to do this research and continue to do these surveys, we are at least starting to see a trend in the right direction. For the upcoming year, I look forward to continuing our community research and hearing from patients to see the changes and hopefully improvements in the ability of patients to get a diagnosis and access to treatment. I'm also looking forward to publishing our work in scientific journals to help broaden awareness of this disease. One of these publications is going to be from our TTR survey that we did this last spring, where the ATTR Quality of Life Questionnaire, which was the very first project I worked on when I joined ARC, was included in our research for the first time, and it allowed us to better see how TTR impacts the quality of life for patients. The importance of this questionnaire is that until now, there has not been a disease-specific patient-reported measure in TTR research. Researchers, clinicians, and drug developers studying this disease have been compelled to rely on a mix of measures from other conditions, and this does not accurately and completely measure the experience that is unique to patients with TTR. So we are continuing the long and rigorous process of validating this tool to ensure confidence in this questionnaire for its use in both research and in the clinic for patients with TTR amyloidosis. It has been a slow but meticulous process that actually began with the identification for the need of such a measure by the amyloidosis research community during the 2018 Research Roundtable meeting. I know I'm looking forward to seeing what will come to the forefront at the next Research Roundtable, and I'll turn it over to David to talk more about this upcoming meeting. Thank you.
Sabrina, thank you. So a little bit of background on me. I have a PhD in cancer research. I've done basic research and translational research, both in academia and in pharma. And for the last 20 years, I've worked in the field of medical communications. For the last decade, the last probably 10 to 11 years, I've worked with a number of companies helping them support drugs in development, both in AL and ATTR. So I've been in the amyloidosis world for about 11 or 12 years. And it's obviously through these efforts that I originally met Isabel. So one of the first projects I worked on with Isabel was to help organize and develop content for the patient-focused drug development meeting held at FDA in November of 2015. Can't believe it's 8 years ago. Now, up to this point, my whole career was as a scientist. I generated data, I thought about data, I tried to develop a narrative to explain to people what these data meant. And of course, I intellectually knew that every dot on a curve, every number in a table represented a patient, represented someone's mother, someone's father, someone's son. I obviously understood, but I didn't really get it. And it was when I sat in that FDA patient-focused meeting 8 years ago and heard stories from patients, heard this disease come to life, heard their frustrations, their fears, their hopes. And it was a real career-altering moment for me. And I really had decided then this was where I wanted my career to go. It took me eight years, but five months ago, I had the opportunity to join ARC and work with Isabel, and that was a very, very easy choice. So what's been occupying me for the last 5 months, and what am I going to be really focused on for the next year? Really 2 areas. Now, there's a lot of very important work at ARC around accelerating clinical trials and the review and approval of new drugs. This is really the work of the Amyloidosis Forum. This is really being driven by Kristen, and you'll hear about that from her in a few minutes. But in addition to that very important work, there's a lot of other things that do need to be done. Some of this is related to Kristen's work, some is in conjunction, and some will be different. But this, I think, really speaks to the spirit of how ARC likes to work internally and externally. It's all about collaboration. So the first area, and this is obviously the area that Sabrina mentioned, is I'm really helping to drive the research roundtable meeting. This will be held in Miami in January. Now, the last roundtable meeting was 2018, so it'll be 6 years ago. Much has obviously changed from then. Some good. There are lots of new treatments available now, as Isabel mentioned. But there's still much work to be done and many questions that still remain to be answered. So in January, we are gathering global scientific and medical experts from a variety of areas, from academia, industry, regulatory, et cetera, to really get some consensus on what are we still missing? What are the hurdles that are faced by drug developers to develop new drugs? What are the scientific questions that still need answered? And most importantly, what is still standing in the way of patient access to these new drugs? And importantly, where does ARC fit in? What are the projects, the initiatives, the areas that ARC is best suited to facilitate and drive? Now, the meeting is in January, as I mentioned. That's not the end of things. The meeting in January is the start of things. There'll be a whole series of work driving these projects, trying to meet these unmet needs that will continue for the years to come. The second area of focus for me is to obviously work with Sabrina and to help formalize and expand the publication efforts of ARC. ARC works with so many groups, scientists, physicians, patients, and as a result, there's a huge amount of information that is generated by ARC. And it's very important this information gets disseminated to the right audience. Now, this is typically done through presentation at medical conferences, publication in peer-reviewed medical journals. But as I'm sure we can all appreciate, in this day and age, there are lots of other avenues, most importantly, probably avenues along the lines of social media that we're able to use. ARC's done a fantastic job of presenting and publishing, and I obviously hope to be able to add to those efforts and augment those efforts in the years to come. So that's me, very happy to be here. Thank you for your time, and it's over to Kristen.
Thanks, David. It will be really exciting to see what comes out of that research roundtable in next month and how it's going to shape our own efforts moving forward over the coming years. So a little bit about me. My background is actually in drug development and have somewhat of a similar experience to David. Before joining ARC almost 7 years ago, my career had been focused on planning and executing clinical trials across a number of different disease spaces. I worked in Alzheimer's disease for a long time, learned a ton about protein misfolding disorders. But during all that time, I never once had the opportunity to sit down and actually meet with an Alzheimer's patient, to speak with them or their caregiver, or really hear directly from them what living with Alzheimer's was like. When I moved into rare disease, I fell in love with working directly with patients. It was completely new to me at the time, but it was also so obviously how research was meant to be done and something I really appreciated. You have to work directly with patients in a rare disease. You have to understand what they're going through, how they feel, how they're impacted by the disease, and ultimately what matters most to them. And so that's really what drew me to ARC, the opportunity to learn from and partner with patients, and then put my skills and experience to better use in an organization and a role that really serves patients. Now, much of my work is focused on bringing together the best minds in amyloidosis with the FDA through our public-private partnership called the Amyloidosis Forum. The goal of the forum is simplistically to do good things for patients by improving upon and speeding up how quickly we can bring new, safe, and efficacious drugs into the hands of patients with amyloidosis. We know that amyloidosis is an incredibly challenging group of diseases to study and develop treatments for. Patients experience very different levels of organ involvement. They have wide ranges of symptoms and capabilities, and the drugs that are being developed for each type are designed to do different things and help patients differently. All of this makes it really challenging to design trials that are meaningful to a broad range of patients and achievable from both a clinical and regulatory standpoint. Now, through the forum, we've been able to bring clinical experts from different disciplines like cardiology, nephrology, hematology, neurology, to work together directly with FDA and global regulatory agencies, with drug developers, and with patients to work together on projects like developing novel clinical trial endpoints and evaluating potential surrogate endpoints, both of which could potentially allow for a broader range of patients to participate in clinical trials and ultimately speed up how quickly those trials could be conducted. All of this is with the aim to accelerate the development of new treatments for patients in need. This past year, we held our largest amyloidosis forum to date, focusing on advancing drug development in TTR amyloidosis, given the rapidly evolving treatment landscape. This meeting brought together more than 60 different experts across FDA, different regulatory bodies, payers, researchers, and patients, all working together to lay down the groundwork for aligning everyone on a pathway forward. We're in the process now of establishing prioritized forward-facing work streams that will be each tackling different ways to speed up and improve upon future drug development, whether it's through accelerating the learning from completed clinical trials to informing future clinical trial design, or establishing the evidence needed to support the endpoints that matter most to patients. This work is best done through the collaborative environment that we've created with the FDA in the Amyloidosis Forum, and I'm so excited to drive it forward next year. And now with that, I'm going to kick it over to Reuben, who is leading ARC's efforts to convene the leading drug development companies in co-developing and partnering on urgent needs facing amyloidosis patients.
Thanks so much, Kristen. Hello again, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us today. My name is Reuben Langevin. I'm Associate Director of Strategic Initiatives here at ARC. I've been here for just a little over a year, and I have to say what initially drew me to ARC are the people. I had the opportunity to meet with Isabel and members of her team, and I was immediately impressed by the really strategic and deliberate way that she has built this organization over the years and surrounded herself with a team of really caring and dedicated individuals. So naturally, that was something that I was excited to be a part of. From a personal perspective, I was a caregiver for a family member with a complex medical disease, and over the course of several years, just witnessing that journey and seeing the challenges that patients can often face, and trying to navigate systems and seeing multiple specialists and really trying to interpret all of the information to arrive at really what the best course of care is. I could see firsthand that it can be a very daunting experience, and now being part of the ARC team, I have the opportunity to help contribute to efforts that can help many patients on their respective journeys. And so that has really been a humbling and gratifying experience for me over this past year. What I do primarily at ARC is manage the Aspire program, which is an industry collaborative that is made up of several pharmaceutical companies that are all focused on developing treatments for amyloidosis. And really the concept is that we bring these companies together in a non-competitive, neutral environment, which allows them to really pool their substantial resources, financial, informational, and really their ability to reach the public. And we sort of combine these resources and have a much more significant impact collectively than they would individually. We also partner with physician specialists to help us really identify and address some of these critical areas, such as improving the rate and speed of diagnosis, because of course we know that the earlier someone's diagnosed and can get on treatment, that's going to yield to better outcomes. We also look at trying to address equitable access to quality care for all patients, regardless of where they live and who they are. I think this program is really unique, and I'm excited and proud because we have really been able to bring these companies together who would normally be in direct competition with each other, and provide this space for them to collaborate and work towards common goals that will eventually improve patient lives. So looking forward into 2024, I look forward to continuing these efforts and facilitating these collaborations, and being a part of a great organization like ARC that does so much for patients, creating awareness and providing valuable information to help them on their respective journeys. And speaking of creating awareness, I will now pass the mic to my colleague, Johnny, who is our master of communications and does so many things to create and raise awareness. So Johnny, over to you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Reuben. Yeah, I'm Johnny. I'm the marketing and communications manager here at ARC. And, like Reuben, everyone at ARC I get to work with is a big part of the reason I love working here, really. My job lets me connect with every department, everything we're doing, so we can put our best foot forward and advocate well for amyloidosis patients and families. I love being able to work with Shaki, publishing all the booklets that we've been putting together, work with Laura to connect with donors and sponsors, and working with David to make that, that clinical knowledge communicate in a way that patients and everyone can understand. Of course, everything our research team does, working with Reuben and the industry leaders are partnering with, and of course, working with Isabel, communicating everything healthcare professionals need to know and patients and caregivers need to have to extend and improve their lives. I'm really blessed to be able to help everyone here at ARC push our mission forward. In 2023, we built out our capabilities to reach more doctors, nurses, clinics, government regulators, and others, everyone working with amyloidosis, to create more awareness and more understanding of the disease. But as we go through that process of communicating to all these disparate leaders in amyloidosis, it's important to me and important to everyone here at ARC that we make sure the patient voice really carries through all of our communications and that we represent patients and caregivers well. And that's, for me, one of my favorite aspects of my job is working with patients and caregivers to keep their needs at the forefront of everything we're talking about, and making sure that they're properly informed too, that they can understand this devastating disease. I'm always working to really maximize the impact of our website, our social media, videos, printed materials, our surveys, all of our programs to give caregivers and patients a foothold on their health. So that said, if you are a patient and a caregiver and you're looking for information about amyloidosis or your specific type of the disease, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you have questions, if you're wondering things, there's very likely other people wondering the same thing. And together, you and I can help everyone gain more knowledge and understanding. I believe there's always ways we can improve our communications, improve our materials, reach more people, and make things more understandable. And that's why, I want to make things as engaging and helpful as possible. I'm always working with our patient advisory council to refocus and commit to the principles that we've laid out. And I always pay attention to, Sabrina mentioned our annual community survey. There's notes and input there from everyone who participates in that. I read those. I make sure that I'm listening to the voice of our patients, and I want to hear directly from you too. So please let me know if there's anything you're looking to communicate or something you want to understand better. Now, I wouldn't be the marketing manager if I didn't use this time to plug one more program. In early 2024, at the end of February, actually, is Rare Disease Week in Washington, D.C. We'll be there communicating the needs of amyloidosis and other rare disease patients to members of Congress. And if you'll be there as well, I'd love to connect with you, prepare and talk so that you can advocate well for your disease as well. Now, that said, I'm going to throw it back to Isabel, who's actually headed to DC herself right after this webinar. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, indeed. I'm off to DC. But not only does Johnny do an excellent job at keeping everyone informed about our work, but also shares really important news from the scientific amyloidosis community at large about advances and just new medical information, clinical trials, and things like that. So really important way to stay informed about what's happening. It's an absolute honor for me to work every day with such a brilliant group of colleagues who feel so passionate about improving the lives of amyloidosis patients, as do I. And there is a much bigger ARC crew that is behind the scenes and not on this webinar today. So I'm really grateful to all that they do. Internal and external collaborations drive the work we do, and so we're a highly collaborative group. We heard from Kristen, David, and Reuben about 3 unique collaborations that enhance our research initiatives with different stakeholders. These really go across what's called the drug development continuum, from discoveries on the bench and understanding the disease, amyloidosis, better to develop better drugs and treatments, to speed clinical trials, which is vitally important to increase the number of companies, of pharmaceutical companies and biotech that will do research and develop programs in our sphere of amyloidosis, and then through to ensuring that approval is fast and access, that every patient should have access to treatments that work for their disease. And ultimately, we will all, as a patient, want to understand what is the right treatment for us at the right time and have that available. We don't want to just have our disease stop. We want it to be progressed, improved, the symptoms to go away that we experience and improve quality of life. So that's what we're all working towards. And as Laura said, ultimately, we all hope for a cure. What we hear from patients, and Johnny and Shaki have talked about this, it really helps shape what we do and the research that's needed. Those personal experiences are really important. But the surveys that you participate in, and Sabrina touched on, really speak about how we transform patient-reported experience into scientifically valuable data that can inform the research and shape research that's done. Rare disease research is typically underfunded, and Laura leads the charge on ensuring that the pace of research can currently be accelerated and continue well into the future. And we truly appreciate your support, both in supporting ARC as an organization and also the participation in research, from filling in surveys and other things that we ask of you, participating in focus groups, advocating. And also, without patients being willing to participate in clinical trials, we would not have the treatments that we do. And we owe a huge thank you to every patient who has taken on participating in a clinical trial. Thank you. We know, and data shows, that informed patients do better. They access better care, they can advocate for themselves better, are better able to identify and manage changes in their health, and understand the difference between health-related challenges from a disease versus side effects that might be addressed from treatments. And also they're more likely to participate in much needed research. So these programs, our patient programs, are really vitally important to help inform and educate patients. And I'm really grateful to Shaki. Not only does she manage a comprehensive portfolio of programs, but many of you will have spoken to her personally, and she's there to guide patients through their journey. It's wonderful at connecting patients with physicians and helping you in your next step of treatment and care. Our contact information and the direct information to contact Shaki or any of us can be found on our website, which is www.arci.org. We love hearing from you and are here for you always. I'd like to just end by saying thank you again. Thank you to my team and thank you to every patient. And we continue to love hearing from you, and learning from you really helps us, as you heard before, but shape the programs that we do. Our programs are here ultimately to serve you. So hearing from you is really helpful to make sure that we shape those programs. So lastly, I'd just like to end by saying thank you so much for joining us for today, for continuing staying on and supporting ARC. And on behalf of all the ARC team, I really wish you happy holidays and healthy new year. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.